Howdy, hey, my friends. This is Gozmaster, aka G to the 3 here. I'm in our Discord channel for deck picks for showing our decks off. The other day, I got in a conversation with one of the other members of this group called, his name's Irish Me, BlackLotus, and is his handle on Discord. And we started talking about our Ral builds. Everybody was talking about how they build Ral with Beacon, Destiny. I don't know what it is, but it's basically a direct damage. The number of spells you have in your graveyard, it does that much damage to your opponent. So everybody's talking about their Beacon decks or their Beacon decks using Ral and Blue Sun Zenith. And I finally wound up asking, how come you guys don't use Blue Sun Zenith with Sunbird's Invocation? That is like an infinite win, like super quick. And I've tried playing Beacon decks. They just take too long to win. They take like 6 or 7 or 8 turns on average to win, and it takes too long. So when you have Blue Sun Zenith and you have Sunbird, why wouldn't you just abuse that? That's kind of a simple challenge. Well, Iris chimes up and says, yep. And so somebody asked, and I said, here's my build. And he says, there's 3 cards in there I would never run. You should run this build instead. So I looked at his build, and I'll show it to you right now, and then I'll show you the results. But before I go into it, I decided I wanted to have a little match off, a little deck off. So basically here's a Blue Sun Zenith Sunbird Invocation and Stitch build off. Rules: I played 12 matches. I played with each deck in training grounds. I took the best and the worst match were thrown out. I measured the speed of the win, the average number of hits taken per match, the average damage taken per match, and the average number of swaps left after the victory was assured, because some people are all about the victories that way. So this is his build. This is what he has in his deck, which is Heroic, Stitch, Blue Sun Zenith, Erratic Cyclops, Sunbirds, Unwind. We all have that. The difference is he has Siren Lookout, which is cool because it explores when it hits the board. He has Chance for Glory, which gives you an extra turn, but it's a dangerous card. He gives Spell Swindle and the Antiquities War. I'll explain the differences here in a minute. Then in my build, I had all of those top 6 cards, except I have Expansion, I have Risk Factor, which is up there in the top left, and I have Traxos and Karn's Temporal Sundering. Now, the reason I like Traxos and Karn is because if I get into trouble and there's creatures on the board, I can bounce their creatures without taking too much damage. After playing his deck, that was the big criticism I have on that deck, is that it literally can't deal with creatures once they hit the board. So what I'd like to do here is I'm going to show you what these decks look like. Oh, I ran out of time here. All right, so I'm in Rising Tensions, and you can see this is his build. I'm going to run his deck first, and then I'll play mine. So we're playing Tez. I think that's Tez 3. I'm not sure which it is. I'm not going for any of the objectives. We're just going to try to win this real quick. Here we go. All right, now, as far as I can tell, the key to playing this deck is making sure that you've got, as quickly as possible, you want to get out one of these 2 cards. Now, the way that you can win in a turn 1 with this deck regardless is by pulling Blue Sun Zenith in your opening hand and then getting lucky in your drop and being able to pull a cascade with red and blue. Because if you can pull that off, then essentially you've got yourself a turn 1 win for the most part. I'm not seeing that that's going to be possible here, so I'm just going to go blue. And 5, I'm not going to take it. I want to make sure it's fully charged. At least 8 would allow me to be able to pull off most of that win. Now you see turn 1, it's already dropped a creature. Now I'm going to ditch that. And let's see. I need how many? 3? No, I need 5. So I got to have... actually, this would work. Barely, but it will. Cool. All right, so now I'm going to get another turn, and then I've got a partially charged Blue Sun Zenith, and we still haven't dropped our deal yet. Okay, more swaps. Nope. All right, so are these copies? These are copies, and that's going to stink in this because this is going to mess with the actual flow of this. Let me see. Need to get 4, and I don't see any potentials for 4. All right, the only real thing I can see here is this white swap, and then hopefully I drop that green, and that gives me enough. But, oh, it did. Look at that. Lucky. I called it. Yeah, baby. All right, now we need another turn. I think we have an extra one, and then this can keep going. Turn 2. Had to get lucky there, though, and I don't like that. And I think if we get the next win condition set up, okay, we got haste now. And need one more thing to happen. So now the loop stops here. And these copied spells really throw stuff off, man. And that's not going to work for anything, except I do have a secondary ability, so I can pull that and go get a unwind, pull that. And I do have some more than enough, so actually I'm going to pull this here. Do I have enough for a 2-drop? I don't think so, but I'm going to play it safe here. So I'm going to load unwind above that and see if I can get all of them off. Nope. Oh yeah, I did. Okay, cool. So there's that. Partially charged card, which is taking a space, which it shouldn't. So that really skews how this deck would play. Copied spells don't play the same turn they're cast or they're gotten. So you got to wait a turn after, which makes them completely worthless now in this build. So his blue, the one thing that he put in his deck that I'd like better than in my deck is that Siren. So between Siren and then not Spell Swindle, but Unwind, man, you're just piling up the blues inside your deal. So that's one of the modifications I'm really going to make in my deck. I like it a lot, but I'm going to play my deck as is so you guys can see it played. And that's game. So that was a turn 2 win. And let's see here. Let me verify that. Yep, 1, 2 objectives, Matt. Cool. All right, so if we go scroll up, we're going to see turn 1, turn 2, turn 2 of ours. It was a win. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to go play my deck as the next one. Okay, so here we are outside of this. We're going back in. We're going to take my deck, which is my standard Ral build. And again, the big differences are, just so we're clear, you can see that this deck has Traxos, Karn, Expansion, and Risk Factor. So let's get her done. All right, let's see what we got here. So he got a turn 2 win. That's pretty that's pretty tough to beat. I'll show you the averages. So the way the rules I set this up is I played 12 games. See, now this is a garbage draw, but we're going to play it because that's what we said we were going to do. All right, I think my obvious one is this. Cool. I did draw some cards, but it didn't give me anything that I needed. Really, no. All right, so turn 2. Didn't draw anything that I could possibly need, so now we got to ditch all of these. And these are all normal cards. The difference here is when you get stuck in a situation like this, do I have enough red? I could do it again. But I like to take my explosion, and when I'm stuck in situations like this, I will charge it up and fire it off because it draws cards. So I can kind of churn through. This is one of the challenge with the Ral decks, and that my deck kind of compensates for by actually having stuff set up this way. So I ditch all these cards, and I go explosion. I'm glad it actually did this. So now I can show you the way that these decks can compensate, or at least my deck compensates for bad draws, because turn 2 wins are awesome, but that's not it doesn't always happen. Let's do this. All right, so I'm going to shoot him in the face for 5, and then I'm going to draw 5 more cards worth of cards in my hand. Now this is crazy that I've gone this long and I don't have any card that I can use to fire off my Blue Sun Zenith's Sunbirds combination. But here is something that I do have. Let's stitch in time. Let's do this now. And look at this. It's not even like it's like I don't even have that card in my deck right now. So I'm churning through my deck trying to find something. I'm going to do this just in case. And we're going to ditch this other buddy. We're going to fire this one up again and try to churn through this deck to find the card that I need. Now this expansion I'm going to go ahead and ditch because that's part of this gemstone. So I'm not going to use that as part of this build. Let's see. I can potentially have a chance. Look at that. Bam! Shampoo. Let's do it again. Shoot him in the face. Boom. There's one of the cards, two of the cards, three of the cards. All right. So we're going to ditch that bad boy. I'm going to go ditch everything but this card for Blue Sun Zenith. And this is how my deck compensates with the potential of drawing a really bad or pulling a really bad draw, because not all of them can be turn 2 winners. It would be nice, but they don't. Yeah, I thought I connected that. All right. Come on, man. All right, so there's Karn. So now if he has a creature on the board, now I can bounce whatever that is. Let's do this. Nope. Gotta wait one more turn. Man, this is taking forever. This is like a turn 8 win. Ridiculous. But he's not throwing any creatures at me. By now, he would have already beat me. So now I finally get to launch my combination. And that took some digging. The challenge I ran into with his build is after we played enough rounds, you have this happen from time to time. It happened 1 in 10 times where you had to go dig to get stuff done like this with my deck. Same with his. His actually took, in 2 games, one took a 51 damage shot to the face, and another one he lost because it was just stupid. The guy dropped huge creatures turn 1. Now, with what I do with Karn's Temporal Sundering, well, he doesn't have any creatures to bounce. Yeah, that's why I bounce my own tokens, and I get an extra turn. So that's what I do, is I use that to bounce my own guys. The second thing I do is when I draw expansion, the first time I have it, I don't fire it. I hold off. And the reason is because of what you're going to see transpire here. These are 2 cards that are taking space in my hand, and they ought not to. I've got red, so that'll be 8, 3, 6, 7. I can ditch this, and I'm going to do that so that I can get off another. They both play, so that's cool. So this is the strength of my deck, is that I keep my loop going by having 2 cards in hand that don't fire. The first, like Karn's Temporal Sundering, I can use that, or another Blue Sun Zenith, or my expansion Expulsion. So what I do with that is I don't fire the first one. If I have an erratic on the board, I'll fire the second and after, so I can power him up. But I don't fire the first one, so that when I end up in a situation like I'm about to end up in right now, Karn's I'm not going to use. So when people say, well, you got that card stuck in your hand. Cool, yeah. Karn's charged up. I don't need it. So it's going into the graveyard to fuel, or it's kicking off the Kickstarter ones, or the Jumpstart ones. And so now in this instance, I didn't get one of those cards, so I'll have to play it this way. But if I did have the, I don't want to shoot that. I want to use it. All right, there we go. If I had the expansion, I wouldn't cast it, and then I would have a partially charged or a mostly charged Sunbird's Invocation, and then I just fire that one off. I use the expansion to fire it off, so I only need to get 4 mana, and then it goes from there. Not now. And this is how I keep my loop going. So now the biggest difference between our 2 builds is mine, I have control over how many times I cycle. I have control over how many times I can loop. Like right now, I've already won. I was just waiting on finding a heroics deal so that I wouldn't have to do it. Or I wouldn't have to wait till next turn for my erratic to be able to hit. And now I'm done, and I don't even know how many turns I have left. How many turns do I have left? Now you cascade. Thanks. So I had 4 swaps when it was all said and done. Bam, 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 shampow. Look, it's funny. I've noticed that you cascade when you're not trying. When you're actually trying to coordinate and calculate all this different stuff, and you're trying to win, you need the points, it's difficult to get it done. That probably took like 10 turns right there. So you're probably thinking, well, his deck is clearly better. No, I just had a Blue Sun Zenith in my hand right from the get. And in the second build, I didn't find one for the longest time. Same objectives filled. This one went in 6 turns. So in his, it won in 2 turns. This one went in 6. But the big difference between these 2 decks is his deck, I can't really dig for anything other than rolls for stability. And most of the time, he doesn't need it. Most of the time, he's fine. My deck, when I get stuck in situations like that, I can go dig and dig to find what I was looking for. So what were the end results? The end results were as follows. In his case, our average turn times were about the same. So it was 3.3. Actually, I made a mistake on the math on his a little bit. It's actually 3.1. So his was actually a little bit faster, but it still on average wins in the third turn. The number of hits in 10 matches, I took 4 hits for an average damage of 1.9 per match. He took 3 times being hit. One of those, because the creatures hit the board, like in that situation I was just in, he didn't have any way of dealing with the creatures on the board. And as a result, it was a 5.9 on average. He took about 6 points of damage per match because of that one skewed it. Had you thrown that one out, it would have been about a little bit more than 2 points of damage per match. Now, another big difference is the number of swaps. I only end up with an average of about 3.6 swaps per win efficiency. So basically, once I've won, I only ended up with about 3.6 swaps left over to have to swipe. In his case, it took me a little getting used to, but once I got used to his deck, I played like 6 or 7 games ahead of time with his deck to be able to figure out how to get it done. And I'm sure if he were playing his deck, he would have kicked. His numbers would have been better than this, but he averaged about 6.2 swaps. In the beginning, it was like 12, 11, 10 swaps, and it just got boring. I had one match, it was up to like 25 swaps when I first started learning how to play it. But after I learned how to control it, I was able to take it down and get it down to about the 6 swap, which is livable. That's not too bad. But man, it stinks when you're sitting there 10, 12 swaps to try to finish up a game. You've already clearly won and you can't do anything about it to be able to go run your attack run. So those are my stats. That's what I wound up finding. If you guys have any other suggestions for builds, or if there's any other categories or things you would recommend that could be done to improve either decks, I know that I'm going to be making a hybrid by adding, probably taking out risk factor and throwing in the Siren Bird, just to see if that makes a difference in the deck and makes it a little more fluid for keeping the loops going. But I'd love to hear your suggestions. I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you'd like. Some more details, the decks you'd like me to go out and do, who decked it best. And we'll go from there. Talk to you guys later. Peace.